We're no longer finding fulfillment in each other. And we just said, this is it.
We may look different and live in different countries, yet our stories are knitted with the same threads of excitement, uncertainties, challenges, and victories. As we journey through the ups and downs of life, it is our undeniable will and God's strength that propel us to joy after pain, smile after frowns, and ups after downs. We were born to win. We were destined to greatness. We are overcomers. Welcome to GodScoop's raw and unedited stories.
Marriage was lovely. It was ecstatic. It was pleasurable. It was amazing. What was it for you? You better said it was good.
It was awesome. It was awesome. I thought at the time I had found everything that I needed. I was comfortable. One of the greatest things for me in a marriage is to be comfortable. Is to feel a level place, to feel peaceful. That's what I liked, and I had that.
Yes. Yes. You look forward to come home in the evenings.
Yeah.
And that is important. What changed?
Yeah. If you had asked me that question a few years ago, I would have gone into the blame game and say, honey changed. But as I'm mature and I take time to look at me, and as God convicts me, I realize that I was not ready for marriage. I was not ready for marriage because I had too much trauma undealt with. I was forced always to be an adult in every single sense of the word. So I carried this facade of maturity. Others saw it displayed on the outside. I convinced myself that I was mature, but the trauma was not dealt with. So when I got married, a lot of things that did not surface when I was single or as a child, they surfaced when I got married, such as the anger, the unforgiveness, the bitterness, the resentment. And I think that had an impact on Honey. And things just started to spiral out of control from there. That's my side, how I can take responsibility for what happened. I wasn't emotionally regulated. I couldn't deal with emotions such as anger and disappointment. So if my husband disappointed me, I went into victim mode and then aggression mode, because you're just like all the other men in my life. I expected it to be perfect, realizing that marriage is not like that. So that's me taking ownership of where I went wrong in the marriage, because I don't think a lot of women do that. Sometimes we blame the men, but it takes two to tango. That's my story. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Mr. Pastor Francis,
Yes.
tell me what happened for you to recognize something was wrong and you wanted out. You wanted to stay at church and not come home in the evenings. What was happening at the time?
For me, naturally, I'm a passionate worker. For whatever I'm doing, I give myself to it. But there were things that I didn't like because of my family of origin. For example, I didn't like an angry wife. I don't like to be nagged. I don't like loudness, shouting. I don't like confrontation. I'm a peaceful guy, naturally, an easygoing person. These were the things that I did not want in a marriage. But because I saw my mother did that to my father. So when I saw the resemblance of that, I became concerned. And I'm not easily blown away. I'm not easily deterred. But the consistency of it gave me some challenge. And then I started staying out. And of course, other things happened. I didn't want to be home, trying to find interest in other things that I shouldn't find interest in. So that was it. Majorly, as I said in the beginning, was that I wanted peace. I wanted peace. And so peace was not at home anymore. So sometimes I'll drive up by the house and just stay in the car until late. Sometimes I'm just out and I just don't want to go home because it was no peace at home.
And Mrs. Francis, when you recognized that was happening, how did you react?
Anger, that was my default for all the pent up emotions I carried as a child that were not released because I had to be an adult and take care of my parents emotionally. So I got angry. I plunged myself in my profession. Everything was about my profession. That was my God. I excelled at that, and that's where I found rescue. I remember at times not going to church because I'm like, okay, this is a facade. You're not honoring me. I'm not honoring you. You're making me unhappy. I'm making you unhappy. What does it make sense? So I moved out. After we
Mm-hmm.
reached that climatic event, I moved out.
What happened?
The breaking point for us was the fact that this is it's not getting any better. I can no longer pretend that I'm happy. You can no longer pretend that you're happy. My career became my number one. His career became his number one. We're no longer finding fulfillment in each other. And we just said, this is it. Forget
Mm-hmm.
it. It's done.
Mm-hmm. Right. How did you recover? Let's talk about that journey.
How did we recover?
So for that part, there was this consciousness all the time that when I got married, one of the reasons that I wanted to honor God, there were no marriages that worked in my family. Nobody stayed married in my family. Families were broken. That's one of the generational curses that came against us.
For both our
Yeah,
families.
that we were not that wise at the time. But I knew that I saw broken marriages all around, and I said to myself, I don't want to be a part of that. And I also believe that God wanted us to do something with our marriage to honor Him. So even when I got to the place, and even when Honey says this is it, and I said this is it, that always played in my mind. I cannot allow the enemy to win this one. And so I started, and I believed as well that as a man of the family, I'm supposed to keep my family together.
Mm-hmm.
So I went on pursuit to ensure that I tried to keep my family together. And
Yes.
I remember I said to my wife, after you've given me a few more months to try again, if it doesn't work out, then I can rest and say, I did my best, knowing that I've made mistakes, knowing you've made mistakes, and we are trying to rebuild. If it doesn't work out, I can say I did what I knew I should.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I saw a lot of introspection in both of you at the time.
Yeah.
That's, awesome. And you gave it a second chance. Did you go to counseling at all?
Oh yes, we did. We did 2 rounds of counseling.
But rounds are
Yeah, two
two
rounds.
sessions.
No, 2 rounds. We went the first round and then we went back
Oh.
the second round, professional counselor. So
Mhm.
yes, we did.
Right. And as you grew into your second journey of marriage, how was that like?
Before you go into that, there's something that I wanted to note, and that is the reason we were able to stay together was that we had a foundation of friendship, a solid friendship. Even
Mm-hmm.
if we were at odds, for the most part, not for all the parts, even in then, we had this idea of best friendship. So we keep telling each other stuff. We, even though she said she doesn't like me and she doesn't want to see me, she'll call me on the phone and say, "You, I know I have to talk to you," right?
Yeah.
And I am there too saying I have to talk because this is where my best friend is. Is that the
Mm-hmm.
best friend is the same person who is hurting me at this time? But we made a decision, and I asked her for some time. I said to her, "Give me 6 months to redate you. And if you give me 6 months to redate and it doesn't work out, then that's it." And she did give me that time. I did not try to rekindle. In the beginning of the trouble, I was trying to rekindle, trying to remember everything that we did. And then God said to me, "Don't try to rekindle. It's a new person. You're a new person. Your experiences have changed you. So why don't you reimagine what your marriage could be?" And so what I did was to make sure I dated her, I surprised her. I remember most of the contents of the conversation we have over the time, what she liked. I had to relearn my wife actually. I had to redate her as though I have never met her before, yet I know her. And
Mm-hmm.
that's making it.
You actually answered the question. And
Okay.
yes, and I I'm taking you on a journey. That's why I'm asking you all of those questions in sequence. Awesome. Thank God for that reconciliation. And do you have children, and were the children impacted?
The children are in the spiritual realm, about carried into the physical realm in the name and blood of Jesus.
And I come in agreement.
Amen. Amen. But your family members, were they impacted?
Oh, yes, yes.
Mhm,
My
mhm,
mom was very overprotective. And so she saw her daughter hurting. She went into defense mode. But at the same time, she loved Honey so much that
mhm,
she was caught between. I remember at one point, mommy saying, even if you guys separate and you get a divorce, no other, because my mom is really Jamaican, and she's like, no other man can come to my yard. She didn't say it like that. No other man can come to my gate because it's only Donald I know. So yes, yeah, family was impacted, but we learned something from that. We
Yes.
learned something from that, and the important thing, and Honey has always had this opinion, but it took time for me to get into it. It's that when you're having marital challenge, your family, no. Third party, no.
Mhm,
Go to a professional counselor.
mhm,
Because sometimes when you go through hurt and pain and you get over it, your family may not. Not
mhm,
saying that my family didn't or his family didn't, but they may hold on to it longer.
mhm. Right. And as I listen to your story, what I'm seeing is childhood trauma impacting marriage, right? A marriage. And I know that many people do have that issue and are still having those issues. And also, in terms of leadership, as pastors, you much is required from you, and so that is additional strain when something is not working out and you divert to ministry. I want you to use this session really to talk to pastors and leaders who are in marriages who are having a bit of a strain for many, many reasons. Talk to them on some of the symptoms where things are not going well, and talk to them on some of the solutions. Let's use that little minute to do that for the interest of time.
Okay, thank you. So, one of the greatest things that affect pastors is this perfection syndrome. People expect us to be perfect. People do not expect us to be human. And that enslaved me for years until I decided that I was not going to allow it to enslave me. Because when you live in the forecast of what somebody has set for you normally become unauthentic, and unauthenticity brings dissatisfaction in your work and in yourself. So, the first thing I want pastors to remember is to be yourself. God has called you to be a particular person on the earth that nobody else is supposed to be, and you're not supposed to pretend to be anybody else. You are unique, you add flavor and flavor to this earth, and you must add that favor that God has given to you. Secondly, you must know your purpose, know who you are, know why God has asked you to join the ministry, why God has asked you to marry this person, providing it was God who told you to. And even then, if it wasn't God, then you have to make do with what you've got. The third thing is that do not stay away thinking that you have the solution for everything. Even though you've prayed for so many persons, healed so many persons, counseled so many marriages, the physician sometimes cannot diagnose himself. You need to find help. And do not be like these black men, because black men, black American black men do not like to go to counselors. They have this philosophy, I know what the counselor is going to say. And because as a pastor, you do so much counseling, you feel you know everything. You don't know everything. And when you are in a situation, you are blinded by the situation. You are impaired because you are in the situation. But if you go for a professional person to help you, and the next thing, do not tell everybody, there's close people in the church, your problems.
Yeah.
Find a professional and work through it.
Yes. Thank you for that. And Mrs. Francis, talk about childhood trauma and how to deal with that before you actually get into marriage.
That's the only way. You have to deal with it. If you have been traumatized in any way, get professional counseling for yourself, before you tie the knot with someone else. Because if the person you're tying the knot to was not traumatized, or they don't carry that experience, if you have not dealt with yours, you're going to inflict pain on that individual. And if
Mhm.
of you were traumatized and did not deal with that, that's a recipe for disaster. And you don't want to over spiritualize it. We're of the opinion that God does work miracles, but miracles are not work in the context where you can do something. Miracles happen when it's out of your control. Counseling is in your control. Do something about that.
And the
Thank
last thing,
you.
and the last thing I'd like to say about that is that out of pain, God brings purpose. So sometimes you are caught in a place, but God is trying to redirect your purpose, because sometimes we veer from our purpose, and these things are God's teachers to bring us back in our purpose.
Beautiful.
Amen. And one thing you said that was very profound was the friendship. The friendship. Hold on to the friendship. So you have to be friends.
Mm.
Awesome. Important.
And Pat, as we close off, as Honey talks about purpose, we didn't know that God would have led us to start a YouTube channel called The Francises. When we're
Mm-hmm.
going through divorce, no, we have a YouTube channel called The Francises where we talk about marriage and we're authentic. I have a channel called Women Healing Together where I talk about trauma and how we can survive. We have written books out of these experiences. So it is amazing how God can use pain, as Honey says, and transform that into purpose.
And I'm glad you said that because I was getting ready to ask you about your book, to talk to our listeners about your book and tell them about your channel, and so that they can contact you and tune
So
in as well.
yeah, so I have Honey's book. Where's my book? I have Honey's book. Honey's book. Okay, you can switch it now. So you talk about yours.
Go ahead.
So my book came out of the experience of the divorce, where I couldn't see anything that was happening. Felt suicidal as well, and so in that moment, I said, what about other people who are feeling this very same way for whatever reason? And
Hmm.
it was in that time God gave me the concept of Knicks, Knacks for living, motivation all around. Sometimes it seems as if God is so far away, but they're actually Knicks, Knacks. You know, you go in the store, you see Knicks, Knacks here and there. There are
Yes.
Knicks, Knacks for living all around us, and God can use us or use those things to keep us grounded and to prevent us from slipping over the edge. So it can be used as a devotional. There are personal entries in it as well, and there's also poetry. So it's on Amazon.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So this is my book called Transcendent Wisdom.
I love this book.
Yeah, I wrote this 10 years ago when I was going through, not only, I don't think at the time we were going through marital issues, but I was going through ministerial challenges. And while I was haunted like David was haunted by Saul, I chose to be better and not bitter. And so I began to write this book. This book is uh, a devotional. It is buttressed by my own experience with the divine. It shares some stories of how God has helped, how God has guided to bring wisdom to the fore. Ecclesiastes is a foundation for the book. So every day there is an entry from Ecclesiastes. Furthermore, it at that time I was not studying psychology, but when I read the book, I realized that God was training my mind about change. This book tries to answer the existential questions of life, such as death, um, happiness, love, sadness, economics, all the issues of life that you can contend with and try to redirect your divine purpose. Helps you to identify, maximize, and of course, become your best self. This book, you can get your author signed copies from us. And of course, it's on Amazon and all the major online book platforms.
Barnes and Nobles.
Yeah. And if you want, yes, and to our listeners, if you want to tune into the Francises, you can go on YouTube as well. Thank you for joining us and sharing your remarkable story on raw and unedited stories. And I'm sure many of our listeners will be impacted or will be supported through your journey. Thank you. Thank you. And to our audience, thank you for tuning in to raw and unedited stories on GodScoop, the place where stories are told to uplift, encourage, and brighten your day. And if you have not subscribed, now is the time to do so. And for those who have, thank you. Remember, leave a comment in the comment section and share and like. And if you have a story to share, leave your information in our description link below, or send us an email. Our email is in the description link. Please have yourself a phenomenal day.